Hello, and welcome back to Minute Mysteries, where we post short crime and mystery stories read aloud by professionals every day. If you enjoy our content, please like and subscribe to help support our channel. Today, tune in for our best story yet. The memory collector, Detective Maria Rodriguez, had been investigating missing persons cases for 8 years, but nothing had prepared her for the Hartwell disappearances. It started with a phone call on a dreary Thursday morning in November. The kind of Seattle day when the rains seem to seep into your bones and stay there. Detective Rodriguez? This is Dr. Elizabeth Hartwell. My husband didn't come home last night, and I'm worried something terrible has happened to him. Maria took down the basic information while sipping her third cup of coffee. Dr. James Hartwell, age 45, neurosurgeon at Seattle General Hospital. Last seen leaving work at 6 p.m. the previous evening. No history of staying out all night, no marital problems, no obvious reasons to disappear voluntarily. Dr. Hartwell, has your husband seemed different lately? Stressed? Worried about anything in particular? There was a long pause. Actually, yes. He's been having some kind of memory problems. Nothing severe, but he's been forgetting small things, appointments, conversations. He was planning to see a colleague about it. Mariah made a note. Memory problems in a neurosurgeon would be particularly concerning, potentially career-ending. That could provide motive for a voluntary disappearance. But something in Elizabeth Hartwell's voice suggested genuine fear rather than suspicion. I'll be right over to take a complete statement. The Hartwell home was a sprawling modern house in the Magnolia neighborhood, all glass and steel overlooking Puget Sound. Elizabeth Hartwell met Mariah at the door. A woman in her early 40s with prematurely gray hair and the kind of composure that comes from years of dealing with medical emergencies. Detective Rodriguez? Thank you for coming so quickly. Inside, the house was immaculate, but somehow lifeless, like a magazine spread rather than a family home. Maria noticed immediately that there were very few personal photographs, which struck her as odd for a married couple. Dr. Hartwell, can you walk me through yesterday evening? When did you last speak with your husband? Elizabeth led her to a spotless kitchen and poured coffee from an expensive espresso machine. James called around 4:30 to say he'd be staying late to finish some paperwork. That wasn't unusual. He's very dedicated to his patients. But he always calls when he's going to be late for dinner. And he didn't call. I tried reaching him around 8, but his phone went straight to voicemail. I called the hospital, and security said his car was still in the parking garage, but he wasn't in his office. Maria made detailed notes. Has he ever disappeared before? Even for a few hours? Never. James is incredibly routine-oriented. He leaves for work at 7:15 every morning, comes home by 7 in the evening unless there's an emergency. He's been following the same schedule for 15 years. You mentioned memory problems. Can you be more specific? Elizabeth's composure cracked slightly. Small things at first. He'd forget where he put his keys, or he'd tell me the same story twice in one evening. But lately, it's been getting worse. Last week, he couldn't remember the name of a colleague he's worked with for 10 years. Was he concerned about this? Terrified. James has always prided himself on his mental acuity. He was planning to have some tests done, maybe an MRI to rule out any neurological issues. Maria studied Elizabeth's face. The woman seemed genuinely worried. But there was something else there. A guardedness that suggested she was holding back information. Dr. Hartwell, I need to ask some personal questions. How would you describe your marriage? We've been together for 18 years. James is a good man, a devoted husband. We don't have children. James was always too focused on his career, and by the time I was ready, it seemed too late. Any financial problems? Debts, gambling, anything like that? Nothing like that. James is very conservative with money. We live well, but within our means. Maria glanced around the expensive kitchen. What about his work? Any problems with colleagues, malpractice issues, difficult patients? Elizabeth hesitated. There was something. A few months ago, James mentioned a patient who had died during surgery. It wasn't his fault. The man had a massive stroke on the operating table. But James took it very hard. He said the family was threatening to sue, though nothing ever came of it. Do you remember the patient's name? Morrison, I think, or Morimoto. James didn't like to discuss his cases at home. Maria made a note to follow up on any recent malpractice threats. I'd like to see his office, his personal belongings. Is there somewhere he keeps important papers? Elizabeth led her upstairs to a home office that was as meticulously organized as the rest of the house. Medical journals lined the shelves, and the desk was cleared except for a single appointment book and a framed photo of Elizabeth. Maria opened the appointment book and immediately noticed something odd. The entries became increasingly erratic over the past few months, with appointments crossed out, times changed, and several pages that appeared to have been torn out entirely. Dr. Hartwell, did your husband ever mention feeling confused about his schedule? Yes, actually. He complained that his secretary kept scheduling appointments he didn't remember making. But James has always been very particular about his calendar. Maria photographed several pages of the appointment book, noting the deteriorating handwriting and increasing confusion evident in the entries. If Dr. Hartwell was suffering from early-onset dementia or Alzheimer's, it could explain both the memory problems and his disappearance. But something about the pattern of torn-out pages bothered her. They weren't random. Specific dates had been deliberately removed, including yesterday. Dr. Hartwell? Does your husband have access to any other properties? A cabin, vacation home, anywhere he might go to think? No, nothing like that. James isn't really an outdoors person. Maria continued searching the office, finding it almost suspiciously clean. Most people's desks accumulated clutter, bills, receipts, random notes. But Dr. Hartwell's workspace looked like it had been professionally organized. In the back of a desk drawer, she found something interesting. A business card for Meridian Memory Services, with a handwritten appointment time for yesterday at 5 p.m. Do you know what this is? Maria showed Elizabeth the card. Elizabeth studied it, frowning. I've never seen this before. Memory services? What would that be? Maria turned the card over. On the back, someone had written, "Initial consultation, bring medical records," in what appeared to be Dr. Hartwell's handwriting. I think your husband had an appointment yesterday that you didn't know about. Do you mind if I take this? Elizabeth nodded, but Maria noticed her hands were trembling slightly. Whether from worry or something else, she couldn't tell. Back at the precinct, Maria ran searches on Meridian Memory Services and found very little information. The company had a basic website listing memory enhancement and recovery services, but no specific details about what they actually did. The address was in a professional building downtown. She also ran a check on recent malpractice cases involving Dr. Hartwell and found the case Elizabeth had mentioned. The patient was named David Morimoto, a 43-year-old architect who had died during what should have been routine brain surgery. The family had filed a complaint with the medical board, but hadn't pursued a lawsuit. However, David Morimoto had a brother named Ken who had been making increasingly aggressive phone calls to the hospital, according to the incident reports Maria pulled. Ken Morimoto blamed Dr. Hartwell personally for his brother's death and had made several veiled threats. Maria decided to visit Meridian Memory Services first, then track down Ken Morimoto. The Meridian offices occupied the entire 5th floor of a sleek downtown building. The reception area was decorated in soothing blues and grays, with abstract art that seemed designed to be calming. A receptionist who looked barely out of college greeted Maria with practiced enthusiasm. "I'm Detective Rodriguez, Seattle PD. I'm investigating the disappearance of one of your clients, Dr. James Hartwell." The receptionist's smile faltered. "I'm sorry, but I can't discuss our clients without proper authorization. Patient confidentiality, you understand. Dr. Hartwell is missing. His wife is worried about his safety. I'm not asking for medical information, just confirmation that he had an appointment here yesterday. Let me get the director for you." The director turned out to be Dr. Amanda Chen, a woman in her 50s with the kind of intense focus Maria associated with researchers rather than practitioners. Her office was lined with neuroscience journals and what appeared to be brain scan images. "Detective Rodriguez, I understand you're asking about Dr. Hartwell. I can confirm he had a consultation scheduled yesterday, but he never arrived. What kind of services do you provide here?" Dr. Chen chose her words carefully. "We specialize in memory-related issues. Some clients come to us for memory enhancement, students preparing for exams, professionals who need to retain large amounts of information. Others are dealing with memory loss due to aging, trauma, or medical conditions." "And which category would Dr. Hartwell fall into?" "I'm afraid I can't discuss the specifics of his case without his written consent." Maria studied Dr. Chen's face. The woman was being legally cautious, but there was something else. An undercurrent of concern, or perhaps guilt. "Doctor, a man is missing. His wife is terrified. If you know anything that might help me find him, I need you to share it." Dr. Chen hesitated, then seemed to make a decision. "Dr. Hartwell contacted us about memory problems. He was experiencing significant cognitive decline and was desperate for help. We scheduled a consultation to discuss possible treatments." "What kind of treatments?" "That would depend on the underlying cause of his memory loss. We offer everything from cognitive therapy to experimental procedures." "Experimental procedures?" Dr. Chen looked uncomfortable. "Detective, the field of memory research is advancing rapidly. We're able to help people in ways that weren't possible even 5 years ago." There was something in her tone that made Maria suspicious. "Dr. Chen, is your work here entirely legal?" "Of course it is. We're licensed medical professionals providing legitimate treatments." But she answered too quickly, and Maria caught a flicker of something that looked like fear in her eyes. "I'll need a list of your staff members and any other clients who were here yesterday, around the time of Dr. Hartwell's appointment. I'll have to consult with our legal department about that." Maria left her card and headed back to her car, more puzzled than before. Meridian Memory Services felt legitimate but secretive, and Dr. Chen's reaction suggested they were involved in something more complex than standard memory therapy. Her phone rang as she was driving back to the precinct. "Detective Rodriguez. This is Officer Martinez. We found Dr. Hartwell's car." Maria's pulse quickened. "Where?" "Parking garage at Seattle General, just like his wife said. But there's something strange. The car has been here for 2 days, not one." "Are you sure?" Parking garage attendant is positive. He noticed the car Tuesday night because it was still there when he did his evening rounds. Today's Thursday. Maria felt the first piece of the puzzle shift. If Dr. Hartwell's car had been at the hospital for 2 days, then Elizabeth's timeline was wrong. Either she was mistaken about when she last spoke to her husband, or she was lying. Any signs of foul play? Blood? Forced entry? Nothing obvious. Keys were in the ignition, wallet in the glove compartment with cash and credit cards intact. Doesn't look like a robbery. "I'm on my way." The hospital parking garage was a concrete maze of shadows and echoing footsteps. Dr. Hartwell's BMW was parked on the 3rd level, exactly where a surgeon might leave it after a long day. Maria examined the car carefully, noting that it was unlocked and showed no signs of struggle. The wallet contained Dr. Hartwell's driver's license, medical license, credit cards, and $180 in cash. His hospital ID badge was clipped to the sun visor. Everything suggested he had simply walked away from his car voluntarily. But the timing bothered her. If the car had been there since Tuesday, where had Dr. Hartwell been for the past 2 days before his appointment at Meridian Memory Services? Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Stop looking for him." Some disappearances are meant to be permanent. Maria immediately called the number back, but it went straight to a generic voicemail message. She screenshotted the text and made a note to have the tech department trace it. Someone was definitely trying to scare her off the case. She decided to re-interview Elizabeth Hartwell, this time with more pointed questions about the timeline. But first, she wanted to track down Ken Morimoto, the brother of Dr. Hartwell's deceased patient. Ken Morimoto lived in a rundown apartment complex in South Seattle, a stark contrast to the Hartwells' upscale neighborhood. Maria found him in his unit, surrounded by empty beer bottles and stacks of legal documents related to his brother's death. He was younger than she had expected, maybe mid-30s, with the hollow-eyed look of someone consumed by grief and anger. "Mr. Morimoto, I'm Detective Rodriguez, Seattle PD. I'd like to ask you some questions about Dr. James Hartwell." Ken's expression hardened immediately. "That butcher? What's he done now? When did you last have contact with Dr. Hartwell?" "I called the hospital Monday, trying to get him to meet with me. I wanted him to admit what he did to my brother, to take responsibility. But he's a coward. He wouldn't even take my call." "Have you had any contact with him since Monday?" "No, but I wish I had. David was all the family I had left, and Hartwell killed him through pure negligence. Someone should hold him accountable." Maria studied Ken's face, looking for signs of deception. "Where were you Tuesday evening and Wednesday?" "Here mostly. Working on my brother's case, trying to find a lawyer who'll take it on contingency." "Why?" "Dr. Hartwell is missing. His wife is worried something has happened to him." Ken laughed bitterly. "Missing? Probably ran away because he couldn't live with what he did. Good riddance." "Mr. Morimoto, have you ever threatened Dr. Hartwell directly?" I told him he'd have to face the consequences of his actions eventually. If that's a threat, then yeah, I threatened him. Maria made detailed notes, but Ken Morimoto seemed genuinely surprised by news of Dr. Hartwell's disappearance. His anger was real, but it didn't seem to extend to actual violence. As she was leaving, Ken called out to her. "Detective, if something did happen to Hartwell, you might want to look into his other patients. David wasn't the first person he killed." "What do you mean?" "I've been researching his surgical record. Hartwell has an unusually high mortality rate for routine procedures. Either he's incredibly unlucky, or he's not as good a surgeon as people think." Mariah made a note to investigate Dr. Hartwell's medical record more thoroughly, then drove back to the Hartwell house for a second interview with Elizabeth. This time, she noticed details she had missed before. The house was not just clean, it was sterile, lacking the accumulated detritus of daily life. There were no newspapers, no mail, no grocery lists stuck to the refrigerator. It looked more like a model home than a place where people actually lived. "Dr. Hartwell, I need to clarify something about the timeline. Your husband's car has been in the hospital parking garage since Tuesday night, not Wednesday." Elizabeth's composure slipped for just a moment. "That's impossible. I spoke to James Wednesday evening." "Are you certain? Could it have been Tuesday?" "No, definitely Wednesday. He called to say he'd be working late. I remember because we were supposed to have dinner with friends, and I had to cancel." Maria made a note to verify the dinner plans with the friends. "What time did he call?" "Around 4:30, like I told you before." "And you didn't try to reach him after that until 8 p.m.? "That's right." Maria studied Elizabeth's face. The woman was sticking to her story, but there was a tension in her voice that hadn't been there during their first interview. "Dr. Hartwell, is there anything else you haven't told me? Any detail that might seem insignificant but could help me find your husband?" Elizabeth was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. "James has been having more than just memory problems. He's been seeing things that aren't there, hearing voices. I think he might be having some kind of breakdown." This was significant new information. "What kind of things?" "He said people were following him, watching the house. He became obsessed with the idea that someone was trying to steal his memories, his medical knowledge. I thought it was just stress from work." "Did he mention anyone specific?" "No, but he became very secretive about his research. He started keeping his files locked up, wouldn't discuss his cases even in general terms. And he was having trouble sleeping. I'd find him walking around the house at 3 in the morning, checking locks and windows." Maria realized she was dealing with a more complex situation than a simple missing person case. If Dr. Hartwell was experiencing paranoid delusions along with memory problems, he could be anywhere, possibly in danger from his own compromised mental state. "Dr. Hartwell, why didn't you mention this before?" I was embarrassed. James is a respected surgeon, and I didn't want to damage his reputation. But now that he's missing... Elizabeth's voice trailed off. "I need you to think carefully. Did James ever mention Meridian Memory Services or a doctor? Amanda Chen?" Elizabeth shook her head. "I've never heard those names before." As Maria was leaving, she noticed something she had missed during her first visit. A small security camera mounted discreetly near the front door. It was the kind of system that might store footage locally or upload to a cloud service. "Dr. Hartwell, do you have a home security system?" James had cameras installed a few months ago. He said it would help him feel safer. Can I see the footage from the past few days? Elizabeth led her to a small office, where a computer monitor showed feeds from several cameras around the property. Maria scrolled through the footage, looking for any sign of Dr. Hartwell's movements. What she found was disturbing. The footage from Tuesday showed Dr. Hartwell leaving the house at his usual time, 7:15 a.m. But he returned at 3:45 p.m., much earlier than his normal schedule, and spent several minutes standing in his driveway, looking around nervously. More troubling, the footage showed him leaving again at 4:30 p.m., carrying a large duffel bag that he loaded into a different car, a dark sedan that Maria didn't recognize. Dr. Hartwell, whose car is that? Elizabeth studied the screen, frowning. I've never seen it before. James only drives his BMW. Maria copied the footage to a USB drive. The license plate of the sedan was partially visible, which would give her something to trace. But the footage raised more questions than it answered. If Dr. Hartwell had been having paranoid delusions, why would he voluntarily get into an unfamiliar car? And where had he been between 3:45 p.m. and 4:30 p.m.? More importantly, Elizabeth's story about receiving a phone call from her husband Wednesday evening was looking increasingly questionable. Back at the precinct, Maria ran the partial license plate through the DMV database. The car was registered to Meridian Memory Services under Dr. Amanda Chen's name. So Dr. Hartwell had been picked up by someone from the memory clinic, despite Dr. Chen's claim that he had never shown up for his appointment. Either Dr. Chen was lying, or something had happened to Dr. Hartwell between leaving his house and arriving at the clinic. Maria decided to pay another visit to Meridian Memory Services, this time with more specific questions and less patience for evasive answers. The receptionist seemed nervous when Maria arrived, glancing repeatedly toward the inner offices as if expecting someone to appear. I need to speak with Dr. Chen immediately. I have evidence that one of your vehicles was used to transport Dr. Hartwell from his home. Dr. Chen is with a client right now. Then I'll wait. And while I'm waiting, I'll be calling for a search warrant for this entire facility. That got results. Within minutes, Dr. Chen appeared, looking harried and defensive. Detective Rodriguez, I think there's been some misunderstanding. The misunderstanding is that you told me Dr. Hartwell never showed up for his appointment, when in fact he was picked up from his home in one of your vehicles. Dr. Chen's composure cracked. Can we discuss this privately? In her office, Dr. Chen closed the door and turned to face Maria with an expression of resignation. You're right. We did pick up Dr. Hartwell from his home, but something went wrong during the procedure, and now we can't find him. Maria felt her pulse quicken. What procedure? Detective, what I'm about to tell you is going to sound impossible, but I need you to understand that we were trying to help him. Start from the beginning. Dr. Chen took a deep breath. Meridian Memory Services isn't just a therapy clinic. We're conducting cutting-edge research into memory manipulation, the ability to isolate, extract, and even transfer memories from one person to another. Maria stared at her. That's science fiction. 5 years ago, maybe. But we've made breakthrough discoveries in how memories are stored and encoded in brain tissue. We can literally remove traumatic memories, enhance learning capacity, even implant new memories. And this is legal? We're working within FDA guidelines for experimental procedures. All our clients sign extensive consent forms. What happened to Dr. Hartwell? Dr. Chen looked miserable. He came to us because he was losing his memories, not just forgetting things, but actually losing decades of accumulated knowledge and experience. He was desperate to preserve his medical expertise before it disappeared completely. So you did what? We attempted to extract and preserve his memories using our new neural interface technology. The procedure involves placing the patient in a controlled unconscious state while we map and copy their memory engrams. Maria felt a chill. Something went wrong. The extraction was successful. We were able to copy his entire medical knowledge base, plus most of his personal memories. But when we tried to wake him up, Dr. Chen trailed off. He didn't wake up. He woke up, but he wasn't the same person anymore. The extraction process had somehow damaged his core personality matrix. He retained basic cognitive function, but all his personal memories, his sense of identity, everything that made him James Hartwell was gone. Maria realized the full horror of what Dr. Chen was describing. You erased his mind. Not intentionally. This was the first time we had attempted such a comprehensive extraction. We didn't realize the risks. Where is he now? That's the problem. He walked out of the facility Wednesday evening while we were running additional tests. He seemed confused, disoriented. We've been looking for him ever since. Maria struggled to process this information. If Dr. Chen was telling the truth, then James Hartwell was somewhere in Seattle with no memory of who he was or how to take care of himself. Dr. Chen, you're describing a medical disaster that could have killed him. Why didn't you call the police immediately? Because what we did. It's not entirely legal yet. We're still in clinical trials, and if this gets out, it could shut down research that could help millions of people. Help people? You destroyed a man's mind. We saved his memories, Detective. Even if we can't restore them to his original brain, we've preserved everything that made him who he was. In the future, we might be able to transfer those memories to a new body, or restore them using advanced neural reconstruction techniques. Maria realized she was dealing with something far beyond a simple missing person case. This was medical malpractice on a scale she had never encountered, possibly even assault or attempted murder. I need to see your facility, all your records on Dr. Hartwell, and a list of everyone who was involved in this procedure. Dr. Chen nodded reluctantly. Of course. But Detective, you have to understand. We genuinely believed we were helping him. The tour of Meridian's actual research facility was like stepping into a science fiction movie. Behind the respectable facade of the public offices was a high-tech laboratory filled with equipment that looked more like something from a space program than a medical clinic. Dr. Chen showed Maria the neural interface chair where Dr. Hartwell had undergone the memory extraction. It looked like a dentist's chair crossed with an electric chair, surrounded by monitors and cables leading to a computer system that hummed with processing power. This is where we map the patient's neural pathways and create digital copies of their memories, Dr. Chen explained. The process takes about 6 hours for a complete extraction. And Dr. Hartwell volunteered for this? He was desperate. His condition was deteriorating rapidly, and he knew he only had a few weeks before his medical knowledge would be completely lost. He saw this as his only chance to preserve what he'd spent his entire career learning. Maria examined the consent forms Dr. Hartwell had signed. The language was dense with medical and legal terminology. but it was clear that he had agreed to an experimental procedure with unknown risks. But there was something else in the file that caught her attention. A second signature on the consent forms, indicating spousal approval. Elizabeth Hartwell had signed the papers authorizing her husband's treatment. Dr. Chen, when did Mrs. Hartwell sign these forms? Dr. Chen checked the date. Monday evening, she came in with Dr. Hartwell for the pre-procedure consultation. Maria realized that Elizabeth had been lying from the beginning. She had known about her husband's appointment at Meridian, had authorized the procedure, and had been aware that something had gone wrong. But why lie to the police about it? Maria's phone rang as she was leaving the Meridian facility. Detective Rodriguez? This is Seattle General Hospital. We have a John Doe in our emergency department who matches the description of your missing person, Doctor. James Hartwell. I'll be right there. The man in the hospital bed looked like James Hartwell, but Maria immediately understood what Dr. Chen had meant about personality erasure. The person staring back at her had the same face, the same body, but completely empty eyes. Can you tell me your name? Maria asked gently. The man tilted his head like a child, encountering a new concept. Name? I don't know what that means. Do you know where you are? A place with white walls and bright lights. People in uniforms keep asking me questions, but I don't understand what they want. The attending physician, Dr. Rebecca Marsh, pulled Maria aside. He was brought in by EMTs this morning. Someone found him wandering downtown in his underwear, completely disoriented, no identification, no memory of how he got there. Any signs of physical trauma? None. But his neurological exam is very strange. He seems to have lost all episodic and semantic memory. He doesn't remember his personal history or understand basic concepts like his own name. But his procedural memory is intact. He can walk, talk, use a fork. Is this consistent with any known medical condition? It's like nothing I've ever seen. Usually, memory loss is either gradual, like in dementia, or traumatic, like in a brain injury. But this man's memory has been selectively erased while leaving his basic cognitive functions intact. Maria realized she needed to confront Elizabeth Hartwell with what she had discovered. The woman had been lying about her involvement in her husband's condition, and Maria needed to understand why. She found Elizabeth at the hospital, sitting in the waiting area outside the emergency department. The woman looked genuinely distraught, but Maria was no longer taking anything at face value. Dr. Hartwell, I know you signed consent forms for your husband's procedure at Meridian Memory Services. I know you were there Monday night when the treatment was planned. Elizabeth's composure finally cracked completely. You don't understand. I didn't know this would happen. Then explain it to me. Elizabeth looked toward the emergency department doors, tears streaming down her face. James was losing himself piece by piece. Every day, more of the man I married disappeared. The doctors said he had early onset Alzheimer's, that he had maybe 2 years before he'd be completely gone. So you agreed to let them experiment on him? Dr. Chen said they could preserve his memories, maybe even slow the progression of the disease. She said the procedure was safe, that they'd done it successfully on dozens of other patients. Maria felt pieces of the puzzle clicking together. How many other patients, Elizabeth? I don't know. Dr. Chen showed us testimonials, before and after brain scans. She made it sound like a miracle cure. And you believed her? I was desperate. I couldn't bear watching James disappear. When Dr. Chen offered hope, I grabbed onto it. Maria studied Elizabeth's face. The woman seemed genuinely remorseful, but there was still something she wasn't saying. Elizabeth, what happened after the procedure? Dr. Chen said James walked out of the facility Wednesday evening. He came home, but he wasn't James anymore. He didn't recognize me, didn't know where he was. He kept asking these strange questions, like what was the purpose of sleeping or why people kept liquid in their bodies. So you knew where he was when you filed the missing person report? Elizabeth nodded miserably. He wandered off Thursday morning while I was making breakfast. I found him in the backyard trying to eat flowers. When I brought him inside, he ran away. I've been looking for him ever since. Why didn't you tell me the truth from the beginning? Because I was responsible. I gave permission for them to destroy my husband's mind. How could I admit that to anyone? Maria realized that Elizabeth Hartwell was as much a victim of Meridian's experimental procedures as her husband was. Dr. Chen had preyed on a desperate woman's love for her husband, offering false hope in exchange for consent to use James Hartwell as a test subject. But there were still unanswered questions about the scope of Meridian's operations and how many other people might have been affected. Elizabeth, I need you to help me understand exactly what Dr. Chen told you about their success rate. She said they had helped dozens of people preserve their memories before losing them to various conditions. She showed me files of patients who had retained their personalities and knowledge after the procedure. Did you meet any of these other patients? No, but she showed me brain scans, cognitive test results. It all looked very scientific and legitimate. Maria realized she needed to investigate whether Meridian had been conducting unauthorized human experiments on a larger scale. If Dr. Chen had been lying about their success rate, there could be other victims like James Hartwell. She decided to return to the Meridian facility with a search warrant and a team of forensic specialists. But first, she wanted to check on something that had been bothering her about the case. The threatening text message she had received earlier still bothered her. Someone had warned her to stop looking for Dr. Hartwell, suggesting that his disappearance was intentional. But who would have sent such a message, and why? She scrolled through her case notes, looking for connections she might have missed. The text had come from a burner phone, making it untraceable, but the timing was significant. She had received it shortly after visiting the Meridian facility for the first time. Someone connected to the memory research had wanted to discourage her investigation. Her phone rang, interrupting her thoughts. Detective Rodriguez. This is Dr. Chen. I need to speak with you urgently. There's something about the Hartwell case I didn't tell you before. I'm listening. Can you meet me at the facility? There are other people involved in this project, people who might be dangerous. Maria felt a chill. What kind of people? I can't discuss this over the phone. Please, Detective, I think Dr. Hartwell might still be in danger. Against her better judgment, Maria decided to meet Dr. Chen at the Meridian facility. She arranged for backup to be on standby and made sure her colleagues knew where she was going. The Meridian building was eerily quiet when she arrived. The reception area was dark, and there was no sign of the usually present staff. Maria found Dr. Chen in her office, but the woman seemed agitated and nervous. Dr. Chen, what's this about other people being involved? Detective, I need to tell you the truth about Meridian Memory Services. We're not just a research facility. We're a front for something much larger. Maria's hand moved instinctively toward her weapon. What do you mean? The memory extraction technology we've developed has applications beyond medical treatment. There are people who are willing to pay enormous sums for access to other people's memories and knowledge. You're talking about selling stolen memories. Dr. Hartwell's medical expertise, for example, is worth millions to the right buyer. Imagine being able to instantly acquire 30 years of surgical experience, or the knowledge base of a world-renowned specialist. Maria realized the full scope of what she was dealing with. You've been harvesting people's memories to sell them. Not me personally. I developed the technology for legitimate medical purposes. But my investors had other ideas. Who are your investors? Dr. Chen looked terrified. People you don't want to cross, Detective. International criminal organizations, foreign governments, private individuals with unlimited resources and no ethical constraints. And they've been using your technology to steal memories from unwilling victims? Dr. Hartwell volunteered. But there have been others. People who were coerced or deceived into participating. The buyers don't care about consent. They just want the knowledge and experiences they're purchasing. Maria felt the case taking on international implications far beyond her jurisdiction. Dr. Chen, why are you telling me this now? Because I think they're planning to eliminate Dr. Hartwell. He's the only evidence that our procedure has serious flaws. If he dies, they can continue selling the technology without worrying about witnesses. Maria realized she needed to get Dr. Hartwell into protective custody immediately. Who specifically is threatening him? My primary investor is a man named Viktor Kozlov. He represents a consortium of buyers who have invested heavily in memory extraction technology. When they learned that the Hartwell procedure had failed, they became very concerned about exposure. And you think Kozlov would kill Dr. Hartwell to cover this up? I know he would. Last month, one of our technicians threatened to go public about our unauthorized experiments. He died in what appeared to be a random mugging, but I know better. Maria felt the case spinning into dangerous territory. If Dr. Chen was telling the truth, she was dealing with organized crime and potentially international espionage. Dr. Chen, I need you to come with me to the police station. We need to get you into protective custody and arrange federal involvement in this case. But as they prepared to leave, Maria heard sounds from the reception area. Footsteps, muffled voices. Someone else was in the building. Dr. Chen went pale. They found us. Maria drew her weapon and motioned for Dr. Chen to stay behind her as they moved toward the office door. Through the frosted glass, she could see shadows moving in the reception area. Dr. Chen, is there another way out of here? Service elevator in the back. But Detective, if they're here for me, running won't help. These people have resources you can't imagine. Maria called for backup on her radio, but the signal seemed to be blocked. Someone was jamming communications in the building. The footsteps were getting closer. Maria counted at least 3 distinct sets, suggesting multiple intruders. No, she needed to get Dr. Chen out of the building before they could be cornered. They moved quietly toward the back of the office suite. But as they reached the service elevator, Maria heard a familiar voice from behind them. Detective Rodriguez? This is a pleasant surprise. She turned to see Viktor Kozlov, though he looked nothing like the international criminal she had been expecting. Instead, he appeared to be an ordinary middle-aged businessman in an expensive suit. "Mr. Kozlov, I presume." "Please, Detective. There's no need for weapons. I'm here to help resolve this situation peacefully." Maria kept her gun trained on him. "By eliminating witnesses?" Kozlov laughed, a genuinely amused sound. "Detective, I think Dr. Chen has given you the wrong impression about our organization." "Then enlighten me." "We're not criminals, Detective. We're researchers working on cutting-edge applications for memory technology. Everything we do is legal and above board." Dr. Chen spoke from behind Maria. "He's lying, Detective. Show her the contracts, Victor. Show her what you really do with the memories you buy." Kozlov's expression grew more serious. "Dr. Chen, you're making this much more complicated than it needs to be." Maria realized she was caught between two people with conflicting stories, and she had no way to verify which one was telling the truth. "Mr. Kozlov, I'm investigating the disappearance of Dr. James Hartwell. If you have information about his whereabouts, I need you to share it." "Dr. Hartwell is safe, Detective. In fact, we've been taking care of him since he left this facility." "Where is he?" "Somewhere he can receive the specialized treatment he needs. Dr. Chen's procedure caused significant neurological damage, and we're trying to help him recover." Dr. Chen shook her head. "That's not true. Victor, tell her what you really want with Dr. Hartwell's memories." Maria was getting frustrated with the conflicting information. "Both of you, stop talking. Mr. Kozlov, where exactly is Dr. Hartwell?" "I can take you to him, Detective. But I need your assurance that you'll approach this situation with an open mind." Against her better judgment, Maria decided to go with Kozlov to see Dr. Hartwell. She kept her weapon ready and insisted that Dr. Chen accompany them. They rode the elevator to the parking garage, where Maria was surprised to find a simple sedan rather than the expensive vehicles she associated with international crime syndicates. As they drove through Seattle, Kozlov explained his version of events. "Detective, memory extraction technology has legitimate applications in treating PTSD, addiction, and various neurological disorders. My organization provides funding for research that government agencies won't support." "And you make money how?" "By licensing successful treatments to pharmaceutical companies and medical device manufacturers. It's a legitimate business model." "Then why the secrecy?" "Because the technology is controversial. People are afraid of anything that involves manipulating memories, even for therapeutic purposes. We have to operate quietly to avoid public relations problems." Maria remained skeptical, but Kozlov's explanation was plausible. It was possible that Dr. Chen had misunderstood the nature of her investor's business. They arrived at a private medical facility in Bellevue, a modern building that looked more like a luxury spa than a hospital. Kozlov led them through security checkpoints and into an elevator that required a special key card. "Dr. Hartwell is on the 3rd floor, receiving specialized neurological care," Kozlov explained. The 3rd floor was quiet and dimly lit, with individual patient rooms lining a central corridor. Through the window of one room, Maria could see James Hartwell sitting in a comfortable chair, staring out at the city skyline. He looked peaceful but vacant, like a person waiting for something that would never come. "Can I speak with him?" Maria asked. "Of course, but I should warn you. His condition hasn't improved since leaving the Meridian facility." Maria entered the room alone, leaving Kozlov and Dr. Chen in the corridor. Dr. Hartwell turned to look at her with the same empty expression she had seen at Seattle General. "Hello?" he said politely. "Are you someone I should know?" "I'm Detective Rodriguez. I've been looking for you." "Looking for me? Why would anyone be looking for me? I don't think I'm particularly important." Maria sat down across from him. "Can you tell me how you got here?" "A man brought me here after I was wandering around outside. He said this was a place where people could rest and think. I like it here. It's quiet, and no one expects me to remember things I can't remember." "Do you remember anything about your life before a few days ago?" Dr. Hartwell frowned, concentrating. "Sometimes I have dreams about cutting into people's heads. But I don't think they're my dreams. They feel like someone else's memories that got mixed up with mine." Maria realized she was seeing the aftermath of the memory extraction procedure. Dr. Hartwell retained some fragmented recollections of his surgical career, but they felt foreign to his damaged consciousness. "Are you being treated well here?" "Everyone is very kind. They bring me food and books, though I have trouble understanding what the books are about. The doctors say my brain was damaged and needs time to heal." Maria studied his face, looking for any sign of distress or coercion. But Dr. Hartwell seemed genuinely content in his diminished state, unaware of what he had lost. She rejoined Kozlov and Dr. Chen in the corridor. "Is he receiving actual medical treatment, or are you just warehousing him?" Kozlov showed her a tablet displaying Dr. Hartwell's medical chart. "He's under the care of Dr. Sarah Kim, one of the country's leading neuroplasticity specialists. We're attempting experimental treatments to stimulate neural regrowth and memory recovery." The medical records looked legitimate, and Dr. Hartwell did appear to be receiving professional care. But Maria still had questions about Kozlov's true motivations. "Mr. Kozlov, what's your long-term plan for Dr. Hartwell?" "Ideally, we'll be able to restore at least some of his memories and cognitive function. If that's not possible, we'll ensure he receives appropriate long-term care." Dr. Chen interrupted. "Detective, ask him what happened to Dr. Hartwell's extracted memories." Maria looked at Kozlov. "That's a good question. What happened to the memories that were extracted from Dr. Hartwell?" Kozlov hesitated for the first time since they had met. "They're stored in our computer systems, preserved for potential future restoration to Dr. Hartwell's brain. And in the meantime, they remain secure and unused." Dr. Chen shook her head. "That's not true, Victor. Tell her about the buyers who have already purchased access to those memories." Maria felt the competing narratives converging on a crucial point. "Mr. Kozlov, have Dr. Hartwell's memories been sold to third parties?" Kozlov's businessman facade finally cracked. "Detective, you're asking about proprietary business information that I can't discuss without a proper legal authority. I'm asking about evidence in a criminal investigation. Have you sold access to stolen memories?" "The memories weren't stolen. Dr. Hartwell signed a consent form authorizing their extraction and use." Maria pulled out her copy of the consent forms. "These forms authorize medical treatment, not commercial exploitation of Dr. Hartwell's knowledge and experience." Kozlov realized he had been caught in a contradiction. "Detective, the distinction between medical treatment and research application is more complex than you might think." "No, it's not. You've been harvesting and selling people's memories without their informed consent. That's theft, fraud, and probably a dozen other crimes. Dr. Chen stepped forward. Detective, there's something else you need to know. Dr. Hartwell wasn't their first victim. There have been others. People who came to Meridian for legitimate memory problems and ended up having their memories extracted and sold. Maria felt the full scope of the criminal enterprise becoming clear. How many others? Kozlov finally dropped his pretense of cooperation. Detective, I think this conversation has gone far enough. You're interfering with legitimate business operations based on unfounded allegations. Then you won't mind if I get a warrant to search your computer systems and financial records. Actually, I would mind very much. And I should mention that Dr. Hartwell's continued well-being depends on maintaining the current arrangements. Maria recognized the threat implicit in Kozlov's words. Are you threatening a witness in a criminal investigation? I'm simply pointing out that Dr. Hartwell requires specialized care that my organization is uniquely positioned to provide. If that care were to be disrupted, his condition could deteriorate rapidly. Maria realized she needed backup and federal involvement to handle this situation properly. But first, she needed to get Dr. Chen and herself out of this facility safely. Mr. Kozlov, I'm going to need you to come with me to answer some additional questions. I'm afraid that won't be possible, Detective. I have other commitments this evening. Maria drew her weapon. I'm placing you under arrest for conspiracy, fraud, and making threats against a police officer. But as she spoke, she became aware that several security personnel had appeared in the corridor behind her. She was outnumbered and in an unfamiliar building controlled by people who had already demonstrated their willingness to commit serious crimes. Detective Rodriguez, Kozlov said calmly, I think you may have misunderstood the situation. You're not in a position to arrest anyone right now. Maria realized she had walked into a trap. Kozlov had used her desire to find Dr. Hartwell to lure her into a controlled environment where she could be neutralized. Dr. Chen, she said quietly, I hope you have an exit strategy. But when she looked around, Dr. Chen was gone. Looking for the good doctor? Kozlov asked. I'm afraid she's already left the building. You see, Detective, Dr. Chen has been working for us all along. Maria felt the final piece of the puzzle click into place with sickening clarity. Dr. Chen hadn't been a reluctant participant in the memory harvesting operation. She had been the architect of the entire scheme. She played you perfectly, didn't she? Kozlov continued. The concerned scientist, the reluctant whistleblower, the victim of circumstances beyond her control. Dr. Chen is actually one of our most valuable assets. Then why did she bring me here? Because you were getting too close to the truth, and we needed to contain the situation. Dr. Chen suggested that the best way to handle your investigation was to feed you carefully crafted information that would lead you exactly where we wanted you. Maria realized that everything she thought she knew about the case was wrong. Dr. Chen hadn't been trying to help her find the truth. She had been manipulating the investigation from the beginning. What about Elizabeth Hartwell? Was she part of this too? Mrs. Hartwell is exactly what she appears to be. A desperate woman who wanted to help her husband. Dr. Chen exploited that desperation to gain access to a valuable subject. And now you're going to kill me to cover this up. Kozlov looked genuinely offended. Detective, we're not murderers. We're business people. Killing a police officer would bring far too much attention to our operations. Then what's your plan? Simple. You're going to experience a minor neurological incident that affects your short-term memory. You'll remember investigating Dr. Hartwell's disappearance, but the details will be fuzzy. You'll conclude that he left voluntarily due to his medical condition and close the case. Mariah realized they were planning to use their memory extraction technology on her, not to steal her memories, but to selectively erase her knowledge of their criminal enterprise. That won't work. I've left detailed notes, informed my colleagues about my investigation. Other people know what I've discovered. Detective, we've been monitoring your communications and case files. Your investigation has been appropriately edited. Your colleagues believe you've been chasing false leads and conspiracy theories. Mariah felt a chill as she realized the full extent of Kozlov's organization. They had the resources and technical capability to manipulate police records and communications, making her investigation disappear as completely as Dr. Hartwell's memories. You can't cover this up forever. Someone will figure out what you're doing. Perhaps, but by then we'll have moved our operations elsewhere. The beauty of working with memories is that our product is completely portable. We can conduct business anywhere in the world. The security personnel began moving closer, and Maria realized she was running out of options. The building was undoubtedly surrounded, her communications were compromised, and she had no backup coming. But as she prepared for what might be her final act as a detective, she heard sounds from the stairwell, footsteps, voices, and what sounded like police radios. Kozlov frowned, listening to the commotion. That's not possible. We're monitoring all police communications. The stairwell door burst open, and Detective Mike Torres appeared with a team of tactical officers. Seattle PD, everyone on the ground. Maria had never been so happy to see her partner. Mike, how did you find me? Dr. Chen called it in, said you were in danger and gave us this address. Maria looked around, confused. But Dr. Chen is working with them. Kozlov seemed equally baffled by this turn of events. There must be some mistake. Dr. Chen would never... But as the tactical team secured the scene, the real doctor, Amanda Chen, appeared in the doorway, and Maria immediately realized what had happened. The woman who had been leading her investigation was not the real doctor. Chen. Detective Rodriguez? The real doctor, Chen said. I'm Amanda Chen, Director of Meridian Memory Services. I understand someone has been impersonating me. Maria stared at the two women, noting the subtle differences in facial structure and build that she had missed before. The fake Dr. Chen had been remarkably similar in appearance, but now that she saw them side by side, the deception was obvious. Who was the woman I've been talking to? Her name is Dr. Elena Vasquez, the real Dr. Chen explained. She was my research partner until I discovered she was using our technology for unauthorized experiments. I fired her 3 months ago. Kozlov's expression shifted from confusion to anger. Elena, that's impossible. She's been working for us for over a year. The real Dr. Chen shook her head. Detective, I think you've uncovered something much more complex than anyone realized. Dr. Vasquez has been playing multiple sides against each other. As the tactical team placed Kozlov and his security personnel in custody, Maria tried to piece together the real story. Dr. Elena Vasquez had been conducting unauthorized memory extraction experiments while working at Meridian. When the real Dr. Chen discovered this and fired her, Vasquez had approached Kozlov's organization as a freelance researcher. But instead of simply selling her services to Kozlov, Vasquez had been operating her own memory harvesting business, using both Meridian's equipment and Kozlov's resources while keeping the profits for herself. "Where is Dr. Vasquez now?" Maria asked. The real Dr. Chen consulted her phone. "According to building security, she left about 20 minutes ago. But, Detective, there's something else you need to know." "What?" "Dr. Vasquez has been selling memory extractions to multiple buyers. She's created a black market for stolen memories that extends far beyond Kozlov's organization." Maria realized that Dr. Hartwell had been caught up in something much larger than she had imagined. An international network of criminals who harvested and traded human memories like commodities. "How many victims are we talking about?" "Based on the records I've seen, possibly dozens. People with valuable knowledge or experiences, doctors, engineers, scientists, artists, who came seeking help for legitimate memory problems and ended up having their life's work stolen." Detective Torres approached with an update. "Detective Rodriguez, we've secured the building and taken 12 people into custody. But we found something disturbing in the basement." "What kind of something?" "A full memory extraction facility, much more advanced than anything upstairs, and storage servers containing what appears to be thousands of stolen memory files." Maria followed Torres to the basement, where she found a high-tech laboratory that made Meridian's equipment look primitive by comparison. Banks of servers hummed quietly, their status lights indicating massive amounts of data storage and processing. A technician was already working to secure the digital evidence. "Detective, these servers contain memory extractions from at least 300 different individuals. Names, dates, detailed neurological profiles. It's like a library of stolen human experiences." Maria realized they had uncovered one of the largest identity theft operations in history. Except instead of stealing credit card numbers or social security information, the criminals had been stealing the actual knowledge and memories that made people who they were. Can any of this be restored to the original victims? That's beyond my expertise, but the real Dr. Chen might know. They returned to the upper floor, where the real Dr. Chen was examining the memory extraction equipment with obvious professional interest. "Dr. Chen, is it possible to restore stolen memories to their original owners?" "In theory, yes, but the process is extremely complex and dangerous. Memory implantation is much more difficult than extraction, and there's a high risk of psychological damage." "What about Dr. Hartwell specifically?" "His case is complicated by the fact that his original memories were damaged during the extraction process. We might be able to restore some of his knowledge and experiences, but his core personality could be permanently altered." Mariah realized that even if they could solve the criminal case, the victims of the memory theft might never fully recover from what had been done to them. Her phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. "You've done well, Detective. But the game isn't over yet. E.V." Elena Vasquez was still out there, and she apparently wasn't finished with her schemes. Over the next several hours, as crime scene technicians processed the facility and federal agents took over the investigation, Maria learned the full scope of the memory theft operation. Dr. Elena Vasquez had been selling stolen memories to a variety of buyers. Foreign governments seeking military or technical secrets, corporations wanting to acquire competitors' knowledge, and wealthy individuals who wanted to experience other people's talents and expertise. The operation had been generating millions of dollars in revenue, with Vasquez using multiple identities and shell companies to hide her activities from both law enforcement and her criminal partners. But the most disturbing discovery came when technicians managed to trace some of the stolen memories to their buyers. Several international incidents over the past year, industrial espionage, military intelligence breaches, diplomatic secrets being leaked, could now be traced back to memories that had been stolen from specific victims and sold to hostile actors. Detective Rodriguez, Agent Sarah Kim from the FBI's Cybercrime Division, explained. This case has implications for national security. We're going to need to coordinate with intelligence agencies and international law enforcement. Mariah realized her missing person case had evolved into something far beyond her jurisdiction or expertise, but there was still one loose end she wanted to tie up personally. She returned to the medical facility where Dr. Hartwell was being held, this time with proper authorization and backup. She found him in the same chair, staring out at the city with the same vacant expression. "Dr. Hartwell, I have some news about your condition." He turned to her with polite interest. "Are you the person who's been looking for me?" "Yes, and I think I've found some answers about what happened to you." Over the next hour, Maria explained as gently as possible what Dr. Hartwell had endured. She wasn't sure how much he could understand, but she felt he deserved to know the truth. "So someone stole my memories?" he asked when she finished. "Yes, but we recovered them, and the doctors think they might be able to help you." Dr. Hartwell was quiet for a long time, staring out at the city lights. When he finally spoke, his voice was thoughtful. "Detective, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "If someone returned memories to me that I can't remember losing, would I still be the same person?" It was the most philosophical question Maria had encountered in 8 years of police work. "I don't know. What do you think?" "I think maybe the person I was before is gone forever. Maybe it's better to be this person who doesn't remember all the things he's lost than to be someone who remembers being someone else." Mariah realized that Dr. Hartwell, in his damaged state, might have achieved a kind of peace that his previous self, consumed by fear of losing his memories, had never known. "The choice is yours, Dr. Hartwell. No one will force you to undergo any more procedures." "Thank you, Detective. I think I'd like to stay the way I am." 3 months later, Maria received a letter from Dr. James Hartwell, or the person he had become. He was living in a supervised care facility, learning to read again and discovering interests he had never had before. He seemed content in his new life, unburdened by the weight of his stolen memories. Dr. Elena Vasquez was eventually captured in Prague, where she had been attempting to establish a new memory harvesting operation. She was extradited to face charges in multiple countries and would likely spend the rest of her life in prison. Viktor Kozlov cooperated with federal investigators in exchange for a reduced sentence, helping to identify dozens of memory theft victims and trace stolen memories to their buyers. The real Dr. Amanda Chen worked with medical ethicists and federal regulators to establish strict guidelines for memory research, ensuring that the legitimate medical applications of the technology could be developed without enabling criminal exploitation. And Maria returned to investigating ordinary missing person cases, though she never again took anything at face value. The Hartwell case had taught her that reality was far more malleable than she had ever imagined, and that sometimes the most important question wasn't who someone was, but who they had chosen to become. Late at night, when she drove past the building that had once housed Meridian Memory Services. Maria sometimes wondered about all the other Dr. Hartwells out there. People whose memories had been stolen, whose identities had been commodified, whose very sense of self had been reduced to data on a server. Most of them would never know what they had lost, would never understand why they felt incomplete or disconnected from their own lives. In a way, Maria reflected, perhaps that was a mercy. The memory thieves had been stopped, but the memories they had stolen could never truly be returned. Like Dr. Hartwell, the victims would have to learn to be new people, built from whatever fragments of themselves remained. It was, Maria realized, both the most successful and most heartbreaking case she had ever solved. The end.